Well, hello readers. By popular demand, I've decided to read portions of my book and post them to YouTube so you can listen to them in lieu of having to purchase a whole audiobook. So here is the first portion of On His Majesty's Secret Service. Chapter 1. Black Kiss. He attempted to strike her, but she parried and sent a kick into his midsection. He fell back onto the coffee table, smashing it to pieces. He leapt back to his feet and rushed at her. She attempted another kick, but he parried this time, grasping her foot and sending her flying, twisting, crashing into the wall. He pulled out his pistol, and as he fired, she rolled onto the floor. He stopped, smiled, then moved slowly toward her in self-praise, glad of his accomplishment. But as he bent down, she slid her leg around and caught his, bringing him down. But he threw her off and scrambled for his gun. Meanwhile, she had regained her feet and brought a lamp down on his head. While he writhed, she kicked him in the chest. He recoiled, rolled toward the balcony door. She approached quickly, like a gazelle to pounce. When he stood, she threw out a fist. He blocked, punched out at her, and she ducked. Rushing him and bending down, she pounded her head into his stomach, pushing him out onto the balcony, and with one last blow and shove, launched him over the railing. He fell with a scream down the 22 floors just as the concierge came into her room to respond to the complaints of the other guests for the noise of the fight. It took him only a moment to assess the situation, hear the scream, and exclaim, "Do you know who that was?" "Yes," she answered resolutely. "He was someone who just didn't know how to treat a woman." He protested, "But he—" and she continued, "was a womanizer." Suddenly her smartphone lit up with a unique ringtone that comes only from a secure line. She read a text on the screen. "London calling. Queen is missing. Return at once." She dashed for the door, saying back over her shoulder, "Don't worry, everything will be paid for." "Jane," called the concierge after her. "Jane!" She texted her husband, Thomas. Her dear husband, Thomas Ashworth. It was one of those summers that seemed it would never end. The still, warm breeze came softly over the ocean onto the beach resort at Berkane, Morocco. The sun hung warm and bright, high and lazy in a deep azure sky that showed no hint of any cloud. The umbrellas of the bathers and tents of the exclusively rich ruffled slightly in the summer wind. There were trimmed lawns emblazoned at intervals with tricolour beds of salvia, asilium, lobelia, and other flowers, with bright flags, and on the longest beach in North Africa, the tan and scantily clad sun and ocean worshippers listened to the latest popular music from the West, blaring from loudspeakers around the Olympic-sized Biscayne. From time to time, echoing above the music, a man's voice announced over the public address system which band would be playing at happy hour and what the drink specials were that evening at the cocktail bars. That's when the music would change from popular to club mixes, when the sun began to set, when the suntanned, oiled, swimwear-bedecked adults would shower and change and writhe into the nightlife until after dark and well into early morning hours. Then an announcement that there was a white Jaguar with its lights left on, and that there was a phone call for Mr. Woodcock that was very urgent. Farther out, on the firm sand left by the now distant sea, the shrill whistle of physical fitness instructor marshaled his acolytes through the last course of Pilates for the day, then ushered them into a sequence of Zumba to cool down. The Saida and Berkane beaches had provided the setting and inspired the pirates of previous centuries, ever since the birth of scurvy and plagues. To Mr. Woodcock, sitting in one of the exclusive tents for the rich and shameless, with his face to the setting sun, there was something poignant, ephemeral about it all. He could almost hear the cannon fire, smell the rum, hear the creak of wood mast poles of the ancient sailing ships of years gone by, smell the stink of blood, sweat, and ship-tar pitch, gunpowder, and fish. He thought of all the thieving, killing, pillaging, spying, and treasure. And that was why he was here, waiting, spying, for the treasure, the woman he had been following for some time now. He knew which hotel she was staying at and sent his best assassin in to fetch her, or kill her. Either way he would be sated. Gulls gliding lazily overhead cried out and searched for food. In nearby gardens, bees flicked from flower to flower on their never-ending quest to pollinate. The sun was getting lower. Already one could smell the September chill that all day had lain hidden beneath the heat. The cohorts of bathers were in quick retreat, striking their little camps and flitting up the steps and across the promenade into the shelter of the town, where the lights were going on in cafes. The announcer at the swimming pool harried his customers in Arabic, and then in French, and at last in English. "Hello, hello, closing in 10 minutes. At 18 hours, the pool is closing." Silhouetted in the path of the setting sun, the two Berber rescue boats with flags bearing a blue cross on a yellow background were speeding northwards for the distant shelter, upriver in the viewport. The last of the bright, giraffe-like sand yachts fled down the distant waterline toward its corral among the sand dunes, and the three agent cyclistes in charge of the car parks pedaled away through the melting ranks of cars toward the police station in the center of town. In a matter of minutes, the vast expanse of sand, the tide still receding, was already a mile out. would be left to the seagulls that would soon be flocking in their hordes to forage for the scraps of food left by the picnickers. Then the orange ball of the sun would hiss down in the sea, and the beach would for a while be entirely deserted, until, under cover of darkness, the prowling lovers would come to writhe briefly, grittily in the dark, between the bathing huts and the sea-wall. On the beaten stretch of sand below where Mr. Woodcock was sitting, two golden girls in exciting bikinis packed up the game of jacare which they had been so provocatively playing, and raced each other up the steps towards Woodcock's shelter. They flaunted their bodies at him, paused and chauntered to see if he would respond, and when he didn't, linked arms and sauntered on towards the town, leaving Woodcock wondering why it was that French girls had more prominent navels than any others. Was it that French surgeons thought to add, even in this minute respect, to the future sex appeal of girl babies? And now, up and down the beach, the lifeguards gave a final blast on their horns to announce that they were going off duty. The music from the pool stopped in mid-tune, and the great expanse of sand was suddenly deserted. But not quite.